approach to whole system transformation. And part of that is working with the codes and working now with the World Water Law. And we've been in touch with Salish for quite a few years, working in close contact, loving everything that Salish does and supporting it, and really grateful for a very deep and a deep collaboration in so many ways. So thank you, Salish, for organizing this. And do you want to say anything else before we just do a round of introductions?
No, just really, really expressing gratitude as well, just the opportunity to connect with you all and yeah, just fellow animal activists and lovers and really starting to, yeah, it just feels like it's an opportunity to really understand how broad this field actually is. I mean, it's not always self-evident, the connection between animals and water, but when, the beautiful thing that I'm discovering more and more and hearing more and more people actually express is that water is the primary unifier. It unifies all of life. It sustains all of life. And so yeah, so I'm happy to be here to really see how we can weave this connection and really, yeah, help find ways to make it perhaps more understood and more explicit in the animal rights movements, that this is, very much about what we're finding with the World Water Law is that it's not taking the current issues head on, but finding that universal yes that everybody can say yes to, almost like the codes, but with that bringing in some very clear, uncompromising realities that really ensure the protection of all of life. So yeah, looking forward to exploring that with you all.
Thank you, Shelly and Jan. Preeti, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hello everyone. It's great to be part of this discussion today. So I am from Pondicherry in India, and where I live, there is we get our water from 50% of the water from the government municipality, and 50% of our water from the local bore wells. So every house or every colony has they dig a bore well, and they keep digging deeper and deeper to get water. And like I can see that in 5 or 10 years time, the soft water is now hard water. And just a few 100 kilometers from here in Chennai, there is always a huge water crisis every summer. So water crisis is something that people are very aware of here, but they may not link it to animal agriculture, but they're very aware to an extent that people stand in long queues to buy water. There are fights between households to get water, and most of the water that they get might even be hard water for all washing purposes. So the water problem is huge, but the central government is keen on very fancy ideas like linking the different rivers and such infrastructure projects which they feel can solve it. So yeah, so it's like the heart of water crisis is I'm in that place right now. So I look forward to learning more about how other people and countries are talking about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Preeti. Ben and Suzanne, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Benjamin.
Suzanne King.
We are both relatively new to activism, but have found ourselves in great company. And I just want to take a second to thank both of you, Shelly and Jan, for Codes for a Healthy Earth that really changed our lives. We were introduced to it through Climate Healers and going to the conference last year. And it really outlined almost everything I believe in. It was unreal to read something in words that I had been thinking for so long, and someone put in a lot of work to figure it out. And I really appreciate both of you doing that work, and whoever else contributed there. We both are on a path of learning and figuring out how to live sustainably and help others live sustainably, and help educate as much as possible. So I'm hoping that this,
That we can help.
yeah, we can help here. Anything you want to add?
Not yet.
Awesome. Thank you. BJ?
Good morning, everyone. My name is BJ, and I'm a climate healer. I've been involved with him since I heard about him. I got to know him, and so that's my major thing. But I've also been an activist in the SAVE movement and Anonymous for the Voiceless, and and people movements also. And I'm interested in a vegan world, a world where we can all live peaceably together. And I'm looking forward to hearing about the water aspect.
Thank you, BJ. Sarah, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you.
Yeah, this is me, Sarah, and I'm a certified climate healer. I live in Los Angeles. I am a vegan activist. I recently left my corporate world, lifestyle, and materialistic embodiment to embrace a full, total vegan lifestyle that involves 100%, I would say about 95% at this point, activism. So that's what I do full-time every day. And I'm almost out of the economy of the money economy. I'm moving toward a gift economy. That's my goal right now. So I'm moving everything out of that. I'm trying to figure out how to get into the gift economy, so I have to figure that out. But my main concern is water for people, and the water, what are we going to do with all the water from the ice melting? Because it's going to be flooding. Is there a way we can use that water? Do we have some type of I'm sure there's some type of a program or many programs around the world that address this, but I would like to find out more specifically about water that's melting, that's going to be flooding, and how we can use that water to possibly, even though it's mostly going to be fresh water and salt water, how could we get that water to either crops or people? Even though, I mean, because right now we're not going to be able to stop people from giving water to animals right now. So I'm trying to figure out how we're going to, the flooding is going to come first, in my opinion. So that's really what I have to say for today. And I'm not showing my video because it burns my battery on my iPad. That's the only reason why.
No problem. Thank you, Sarah. iPhone. If you want to introduce yourself, please go ahead. If not, I'll ask Annette if she wants to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Annette Hadaway from Portland, Oregon, and I'm an animal and nature communicator.
Thanks, Annette. So I'll introduce Lisa Barca to you. Lisa is a professor at the Barrett School of Honors at Arizona State University. So, and she's been an animal rights activist within the system. So she's on a phone call right now, but she's a musician. She has done songs about animal rights. In fact, her video on barbecue protest just came out. So that's who we have at the moment. And you all know me. So I'm Sailesh Rao, And I'm a great fan and supporter of Shelley and Jan. I think they are creating the infrastructure for the new world. So these are all things that I see as very relevant for where we are headed. The Codes for a Healthy Earth, we've adopted that. We've adopted the water law at Climate Healers. So we are in lockstep with what they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I did see the iPhone unmute for a second there, so maybe another opportunity.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah, you're right. Actually, I'm using this Zoom on my phone for the first time, so my name doesn't appear. I'm Madhavi Konte from India, and I'm attending a Zoom meeting with Dr. Rao after a long time. But when I got to know about this session, it's so important for India, I decided to listen to the discussion. And I think Preeti has very much summarized what the problem in India is, and we are facing the deep crisis, I think, as far as water and all environmental issues are concerned. And I would certainly like to know what we could do and come together and find out solutions to these water crises.
Thank you for joining us, Madhavi. It's good to hear from you.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful to hear, because I'm very aware of you being responsible for helping connect with translators and helping us translate the codes into so many Indian languages. So thank
yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you finally for
But
that.
that was the least I could do, yes.
Thank you so much.
So maybe I'll just share a little bit about the World Water Law with you, and then why we initiated this conversation that I suggested to Sailesh, because it felt somehow the coming together of the World Water Law and the animal activists would be a very potent force for transformation. So as you know, we created the Codes for a Healthy Earth. What I've been interested in for many, many years is whole system healing. What would it look like if we apply holistic healing principles to our collective dis-ease, to our collective to our collective imbalance, and really looked at this interconnected organism, this interconnected planetary organism through the eyes of holistic healing. That's preoccupied me for many, many years. And the Codes for a Healthy Earth is one of the first attempts to really offer something constructive, after having written a paper called Deconstructing Democracy, where I worked to explore how can we argue ourselves out of a system that doesn't work. What do we need to know about flaws of democracy in order to be able to finally let go of it and come up with something better? So that was an article, a little booklet that I wrote called Deconstructing Democracy. And then we came up with the Codes for a Healthy Earth, which is worked to put a lot of these principles into a relatively simple framework. It's simple because it really goes back to the principles of life. It says what is governance for, and it works with the language of life. So it certainly wasn't a simple process to get there, but it does simplify. And it was wonderful to hear you, Benjamin, say, you know, like something that I've known for so long, and yet someone's actually articulated it, because the wisdom was there, and I couldn't find any way that brought it together in a coherent way that would help us to see the same things and organize around them. And one of the first principles of the Codes for a Healthy Earth is to ensure that the codes talk about the only purpose of governance, legitimate purpose of governance, being to protect and cultivate the health and vitality of the planet and all its inhabitants for generations to come. And anything else doesn't make sense. If we're going to have a governance system, that needs to be its function. That's how all species work, is working for future generations, and we need to do the same thing as an evolved so-called intelligent species. And doing that, we work with the language of life, which is the language of needs and resources. It's basically what are our fundamental needs, our real needs, not the fabricated needs that we're indoctrinated to learn, but our real needs. And when we go back to that, it all becomes really simple. We have the need for, and we said that the primary function of governance is then to ensure that all humans and all animals have guaranteed access to pure water, clean air, healthy soil, nourishing, healthy nourishment, comfortable shelter, protection from physical and emotional pain caused by humans, and finally, the ecological and cultural conditions needed for each of us to be able to manifest our potential in service of the whole. So those are the fundamental needs that we all have, and I think we share it with other species as well. And then the question is how to do it. So there's also a whole lot of guidelines, and then in the thinking about how to do it, a lot of the information I get comes through direct visions, and especially within the COVID pandemic, I had a sense that things are shifting very rapidly, and that the consciousness about our interconnectedness is changing, the consciousness about water is changing, the consciousness about the brokenness of our system is changing, and the whole conversation about a collective reset, a collective reboot was already happening. You know, saying, okay, this is the perfect conditions for a collective reboot. We're in it anyway. We're not going back to the same system. So how do we utilize this unique moment in time where everyone is really concerned about their health? The climate story has still been too distant for many, but the pandemic has become all upfront. It's personal, it's intimate, and we're all somehow aware of this this virus and the need to somehow engage with this new context that we're in. And so how do we utilize this context for something that changes everything radically? Because as climate healers know, we don't have all that much time. And when you look at whole system healing principles, there's actually possibilities for exponential healing that are non-linear when you get to the source of the problem. And so when in the vision I saw that there's one thing that can actually unify all humans. It's the primary unifier that we can all get behind, especially because most of us are really beginning to feel the attack on our collective waters and the impact of that attack on our collective waters on our physical body. So the idea that what if we could all, if citizens across the world could all pick up the idea of a world water law and somehow organize to ensure that it happens. How it would happen, I'm not sure the exact process, but I do have a very strong sense that sometimes there's an idea that whose time has come, and that when it lands, something is activated in the system and people are magnetized towards it and know what to do. So it felt like this is one of those ideas that needs to be put out into the world and that needs to cut through a lot of the discourse that is so disconnected from this fundamental reality of water. And in that sense, the World Water Law proposal was born. And then since then, Jan and I, this happened a few months ago, where I actually had that vision. And then since then, Jan and I have been working very hard to put out a proposal that we can share with the public and activate people to get behind, invite conversations like this around it, which are conversations around how do we make this happen. And our idea is that we're not trying to convince anyone why it needs to happen. Our idea is much more to invite conversations with those that intuitively get it, that know it, that have been, it's just, you know, that already are there, but just haven't had the concept. And to figure out, as Salish often says, it's not a question of if, it's a question of an engineering question of how. So how do we actually make it happen? What do we need to make it happen? And the first thing that we need is conversations like this. So I'd like to just take the opportunity to read the World Water Law out to you so that we can all have it in our consciousness. And then I'd really like to invite a conversation of, you know, how does this relate to each of you in terms of your own, where you are in terms of your activism? How does it serve climate healers in a way? And how can climate healers and all the work that you're doing support this? So I'm going to ask you to read it if you don't mind.
Okay.
I think you can. I think it would be good if Jan read the preamble as well, because I think it's quite strong and it gives context.
Do you want to share
Yeah,
screen
we
so we
can
can
share
read
screen.
together? Okay. So, yeah, there's a beautiful quote that came in from La Donna Brave Bull Allard, who initiated the Standing Rock protests. So that was a beautiful, very powerful indigenous connection that came through.
Actually, you may want to read it.
In support, yeah. So I'll read it. I'll read the whole thing. The World Water Law is the first initiative towards the global adoption and implementation of codes for a healthy earth. The water of life, the first medicine of the world, is so precious to every living thing that grows, breathes, and lives. The water is the female blood of the Mother Earth that brings life. A woman brings children in this world through water of the womb. She then cleanses her children with water, cooks and feeds them with water. She plants and waters her gardens. The trees that grow and provide air need water. Water is life. And as we say, Mini Winchoni, water of life. We will continue to stand for the water so that we may live. The World Water Law is a great way for all people to unite around our water and demand a binding international law protecting one of our Mother Earth's prime resources. A good earth woman, La Donna Brave Bull Allard. And so the World Water Law towards radical whole system healing. The escalating social health and environmental crises are a stark wake-up call for all of humanity to act on our shared needs and priorities. Our personal health, healthy, supportive, and resilient families and local communities, local access to our basic necessities, and a healthy world for ourselves, our children, and for all of life. The global and rapid response to the pandemic has shown the world that it is possible for governments to coordinate around a shared crisis and for citizens to change their behavior in a very short space of time. Our next step as interconnected and interdependent citizens of Earth is to ensure that the global response is not limited to containing and treating symptoms. With the far-reaching impact of the virus, humanity is faced with an unprecedented opportunity for a global reset, to put in place new foundational laws and systems that proactively cultivate the health and vitality of the planet and all its inhabitants for generations to come. The most efficient and holistic strategy for restoring both human and environmental health is to prioritize the healing of our planetary waters, the foundation of health and the source and sustenance of all life on Earth. As humanity evolves to recognize the essential rights of nature, we are now called to stand for the right of water to be protected and restored to its original pristine nature. The proposal for a World Water Law. We, citizens of Earth, call for and commit to working together to ensure that a binding international law is put in place for the immediate and universal protection of all water as the first vital step towards global cooperation for effective worldwide social and ecological healing. The World Water Law requires the uncompromising protection and restoration of all natural water sources, watersheds, aquifers, rivers, lakes, wetlands, estuaries, and oceans. The rewilding of ecosystems necessary for the restoration of the planetary water cycle, and the guaranteed free access of all humans and animals to natural, uncontaminated water. The World Water Law holds all governments, corporations, communities, and individuals fully accountable for their impact on all waters everywhere. This one law serves as a unifying foundation for all governments and citizens to work together with community-led wisdom and stewardship councils in ways that effectively serve the health and vitality of the whole. This global initiative honors the many water guardians around the world who have dedicated their lives to the protection and reverence of water on behalf of all of life.
If there are any resonances, we'd love to hear. Rebecca, it looks like you're
resonating.
Well, it sounds, I'm BJ. It sounds so beautiful, and it sounds like you've gotten to the essence of something that we've all touched on. And I have wondered about how can someone guarantee somebody a right to water if there isn't any? But if we think globally, and the way you have it at the bottom where you can sign up to be a part of it and make governments accountable, I mean, I'm beginning to see there might be a way to do this. I'm very moved by it.
Yeah, one of the, it's a great ask of governments and corporations to do, but in my experience, governments and corporations agree to a lot of things, but they don't do it. I mean, we've had like the Convention on Biological Diversity, where they all agreed unanimously that they will halt biodiversity loss by the year 2010. And you can see all along until 2010, it was actually increasing. The loss was increasing every year, and there was nothing being done about it. So it's always good to sign something. They'll sign something and then they won't implement it, right? So that's what they did with the ecosystems collapse as well, the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. So this is why Gandhi also asked the governments to do things. He asked the British government to leave India. He constantly asked them to do it, but he did things at the grassroots to make it effective, that they will leave. So it's good for us to ask others, to sign the law and to actually do this. But I feel that the one thing that we can all do to implement the World Water Law is to convince our friends and family to go vegan. That's the best way to clean the water around you, because animal agriculture is the leading cause of all water pollution around the planet. And this is why I was very happy when you had one day during World Unity Week to talk about the World Water Law. And I was excited when Peter Melton told me that they may be asking me to speak on that day at 8 o'clock in the evening. And I was disappointed when they moved it to Monday, And in fact, they didn't even record my presentation, because I wanted to connect it and show that it is, World Water Law is about animal agriculture, is about our contribution. So when, we have the power in our hands 3 times a day to make a huge difference, not just for the World Water Law, but for the Codes for a Healthy Earth as well. And it is all intimately connected. This is the grassroots implementation of World Water Law and the Codes for a Healthy Earth. So it just reinforces the work that we need to do at the grassroots. Because ultimately, it's only when enough people change from the grassroots that the government is going to be forced to change.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe I'll just make a comment about that, if I can. 2 comments. One of them is, this isn't really an ask of anybody. It's an invitation to action of all of us to make it happen, using all our resources possible So if it's, you know, it says that this is a citizen-led process, and everybody, educators, lawyers, politicians, scientists, everybody has a role to play in it. And we all just need to bring our resources to the table to make sure it happens. So, so this isn't just signing a petition. The process that we're actually embarking on is a process of inviting global conversations. So for instance, on the 26th of July, we will be having an open space, a global open space session, which invites people from all over the world. We're having two, one for the East and one for the West, so we have all timelines to say, how do we actually ensure that this happens? And to work with the motivation and the wisdom that comes from the field to bring in all sorts of ways of doing that. And I think, you know, one or many sessions that are held by animal activists around this can be very, very useful to say, okay, so how do the animal activists support this, and how does this support the animal activists? Because a world water law, you know, you say, okay, one, like Salish says, one key ways is to ensure that everyone goes vegan. Now, some people are going to go vegan when they understand the impact on water. And some people are going to go vegan when they understand compassion, but some people need to go a roundabout. So only when, you know, showing that the world water law is just say for a moment, okay, the most important thing. Then we say, okay, so what is impacting the world water law? You don't have to do it for the animals, you have to do it for the water, which is just another way in, but it's coming not from the vegan perspective, it's coming from the water perspective, which can circumvent a lot of resistance. So then we say, okay, who are the biggest polluters? You know, animal agriculture is one of the biggest, obviously the pharmaceutical, etc. But it's that kind of conversation that we need to have. And yes, you know, so I didn't know that about what happened about moving your session. We didn't know, yeah, so just sorry about that. We had no clue that was going on.
Yeah. So I think just to follow up on that, you know, the event that we're organizing on the 26th is a real opportunity for us to go deeper into the conversations that really make the connection between animal rights and water protection and water healing. You know, whether it's how do we transition from current agricultural systems to plant-based agricultural systems, which are way more water efficient, as well as, you know, how do we promote you know, a water friendly diet for everyone, you know, and I mean, there are so many connections, yeah, that feel like, you know, the idea is, and that was one thing that happened during World Unity Week, was these open spaces where people could really come together. We feel that that's a really good model where we can really start to scale and localize in many ways and make more and more of these open spaces in a decentralized way that can then start to focus more and more on specific issues with specific groups, but still all connected to the same common compass, which is to ensure that all of life has guaranteed access to uncontaminated water. And yeah, when that happens, all animals are protected in the process because it's aligned with the codes that protects all animals from any physical or emotional harm. And so this is kind of how we see it kind of unfolding.
Also, the plant agriculture is a way to clean the water too. Trees are very good filters. So they filter all the pollutants and they store them in their trunks and branches forever if we leave the tree alone. Because if you chop the tree and start burning it, that goes back into the air and comes down in the rain again. So nature has a way of cleaning up the mess we have made if we allow nature to do that, you know.
Hi, this is Annette. May I contribute?
Please.
I'd like to share about the synchronicity of me joining today and why I'm not showing myself. I'm still in my PJs because I was finishing communication from the Botswana elephants. This is the second blog post on a series of their communication. And I'm learning that the animals are my employer, and the elephants really resonate with me. They are the ones who introduced me to Dr. Rao. In this second blog post, and I'll put the link so you all may read it after today's session, was more about, they wanted to communicate more about solutions rather than the cause. And with each blog post, I put a graphic image to garner attention. And with this one, I didn't have one of my own photographs. And so the elephants actually wanted me to post the flag of Botswana. And when I looked up the meaning of the flag, the blue is resonant of water. And so I thought I should communicate this to you all. And I'm also learning that the animals want me to amplify their voice, but in the form of more of questions so people can come up with their own conclusions to learn instead of summarizing with my hypotheses or sharing what I think. And so maybe you all are supposed to read this series. I'm not certain, but I thought I would share.
Thank you so much, Annette. The elephant is just one of my, yeah, just a very, very special being in my own personal life, and so much wisdom. I'd love to read the post.
I really like, specifically with Climate Healer's mission of grassroots vegan transformation. I like coming at, you know, a campaign with the water-friendly diet, like you said, Jan. I think everyone's really familiar with the animal reasons and the environment reasons and the health reasons. And I think that you're right, that coming around with water is, you know, it is obviously related to environment and health and animals. And I think it does offer kind of less resistance or the potential for less resistance. So I'm personally really excited about that water-friendly diet avenue.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
And it's also something we've learned through. We spent a little bit of time working on a farm, and during that experience, learned about some farm bills that were here in the United States that were getting bipartisan support that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, farming brings people together from both sides of the aisle. So water should have that same effect.
I can see that as being a very similar situation.
Yeah, this piece about water unifying everybody feels super important. You know, we're in such a divisive place at the moment, whether it's with animals, whether it's with you know, race, whether it's with everything, it's all about separation. And when you come back to water, we are at least 70%, and according to some 99% water, and we all need water. So we can all relate to it. And beyond the differences, if we can focus our attention on water, we're actually taking our attention away from the divisiveness and away from the problems into solving something that is, we're putting attention to life, and we're saying, let's get together and restore and nurture this foundation of life. So it's got a very inspirational aspect to it that in the context of all the challenges has special power. And that's the beauty of water. And as I meditate more and more with the intelligence of water, you know, it's really extraordinary. I mean, I feel like I'm only getting a glimpse of it, but the intelligence of water, the more I learn about it, it feels like it's really leading the way at the moment and showing that if we focus on it and if we meditate with it and if we honor it, it clears not only the body, it also clears consciousness. We know that Emoto studies have shown the impact of thought on water. So you can imagine just how hard it is for people to make clear decisions when we don't have clear water. And so clearing the water systems will also clear our consciousness. And it's about the water-friendly diets. It's around also banning any contamination of water whatsoever, so that we can actually refine that natural intelligence within us, and which is also a very, very important part of the immune system. You know, we're just learning so much at the moment because, you know, we've recently come across information that is specifically about healing climate through healing water, the water cycle, and obviously also a lot of information about the importance of water on the immune system. And now with everyone really worried about the immune system, it's very relevant. So the other piece I think that's also unusual about this law proposal and also the codes is that it also speaks to the imperative of ensuring that all animals and humans have access to you know, natural uncontaminated water. And I don't see anywhere where animals are really included in laws of rights in this way. So just putting the two together also is something very profound. You know, it's not just about changing our diets, that's part of it, but all humans and all animals and of course all ecosystems, you know, have the right to it. So this also shifts thinking a lot. And the other piece that shifts the thinking is that we're talking about restoring the water cycle. It's not just about local solutions for water or just human-centered solutions, you know, technologies for purifying water so humans can drink water. It's about restoring the water cycle. And when you restore the water cycle, what you're naturally doing is you're naturally protecting the animals because they are such an important part of the water cycle. So when you bring the understanding of the water cycle together with the role that the animals play in spreading in fertilizing the land and in, you know, in really seeding so much of the plants world and the tree world, you can understand that it's situating animals in a very different way from the way that we're used to it.
Looks like Sarah wants to say something.
Sarah, you have your hand up.
Yes. Okay. My question is, hold on, I'm on two devices. So hang on, let me turn this down. Sorry. Okay, so my question is for Dr. Rao, would you think now the K-Mama app, we should include water?
The K-Mama app.
Yeah, the K-Mama app, I mean, for those who don't know, it's about providing healthy, nourishing food to everybody. Because by the end of this year, we are on track to double the hunger around the planet because of all the jobs that have been lost, the economic disruption that has happened. The World Food Program is estimating that 1.6 billion people are going to be food insecure. And it's a kind of disruption that has in the past led to things like world wars and stuff like that. So we are trying to address that by saying, okay, let's connect people who are food insecure with those who are food secure, and through the medium of healthy, whole, plant-based foods being made available to to the insecure people. So that's what the app is. We have a website called foodhealers.org that we are working on that would connect the two, and we are using places of worship to provide the food. So it's literally, synagogues and churches and mosques and temples that will be cooking the food, and then they will list the cost to the suggested donation to be double of what their actual cost is. That's what we're recommending to them. So this way, when they get donations for the food they're offering, they can actually feed someone for free. So using that to also talk about water, also talk about the impact on water, because that's a medium for also education. It's not, because literally we can say, here is the water footprint of this food, this meal that we are getting today, right? And how local is it? Did we have to transport it? So we can add things like that in the information that we are providing to people. And that's how I think we can help the World Water Law become more well-known in the community through the app.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think that's huge, and I love the app. I think it's extraordinary what you're doing with it. And apropos the issue of food security, I'm just listening to Preeti and knowing what's going on in India and other places. So many people don't have fundamental water security, and so the idea of people having water security, and how do we ensure that they get it? It feels so big. What is the app that would support that as well?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been working in Rajasthan, where water security is one of the biggest concerns, because women walk 3 or 4 miles, to get water, and they bring water on their heads, and so water is very precious to them. But then they're also raising goats and cows to feed rich people in cities. And they see that the fact that they're raising these animals is causing their forests to die, and this is causing them to travel further and further to get water. They see that at the same time, but the people in the cities don't see that. They don't make the connection that they're ordering a mutton biryani is actually causing a woman to walk further to get her water.
Yeah.
So that connection has to be made more explicit so that people see. Because when I ask people, would you deliberately hurt someone unnecessarily? They all say no, you would never do that, right? But they're unconsciously hurting others. Mm-hmm. Not just other animals, but also people. You're hurting other people, right? So it's making that connection. It's letting people see the true impact of their actions, and
that feels like another really important application. And I do believe that, there are people who are developing that, but it would be great to kind of pool what we're aware of in terms of the apps that are showing the hidden consequences of what we consume, how we consume across the board. And that feels like, it's really coming now, this time of truth, this time of exposure, this time of no more hidden secrecies or externalized costs. It's really about taking responsibility for the full range of consequences and impacts of our actions. And we need to be confronted with them, to really kind of face the reality of what our culture in many ways has hidden from us. So that would be a very interesting, exploration, I think, that feels so essential to this movement, because, the reality around, especially around meat consumption, is that most people wouldn't be capable of killing an animal themselves, let alone butchering it. So where is that all of these missing links that we're just kind of blind to really need to come out now, and in terms of us really taking responsibility.
Preeti, you have your hand up.
Yeah, yeah, the preamble of the international water law it's actually, it doesn't take much time to feel that, yeah, we want this. So sort of, it is also very ironical that what was so obvious is we are now putting into words so late. It feels very obvious that that must be done by default. So I wanted to add to Professor Rao's comments that apart from making a law and asking governments and corporations to follow that, we should also spread veganism at grassroots level. But there are people in intermediary, they neither belong to governments, and they are somewhat famous they are popular among people. For example, the actor Amir Khan in India, he's a vegan himself, although he doesn't talk very openly about it, but he and his wife, they are vegan. And he has this foundation, which I've linked in the chat, called Pani Foundation. So he works a lot to increase water conservation and rainwater harvesting in the villages of a state in India, Maharashtra, and they award the farmer who has the best practices. So if we catch hold of local heroes, local water heroes, then they have a huge following at the grassroots level, like Amir Khan, and we have Afroz Shah, who on his own cleaned kilometers of beaches in Mumbai. So he is also very passionate about water body. So he just saw the water body across his house. It had huge pile of plastic, so he cleaned, and he was also CNN hero, I think. He was awarded that. So there are many people who have followed him, and they continue to clean beaches with him. So I think we can, at every country, at least from India, we can, me along with Madhvi, we can talk to local water heroes, and when they tell, or when they realize and they tell about animal agriculture, then it'll be faster. So I want to tell that. And second one is one of the challenges that could come with asking governments to just, for example, sign someday this petition is when they have a conflict between economic growth and being obliged to this law. They might just wait for each other consistently. Okay, let China sign this, then I'll sign. Bhutan will be the first one to sign, but then if Pakistan doesn't sign, so it will be we may be in a loop waiting for each other to do the thing first. So I mean, this is just, it can come in the way. That is, of course, it can be overcome when people demand it, but we can always be in this loop. Okay, they are not doing, so I'm not going to do, sort of thing. And the third point that I had is we can always, like the Sadhana Forest in Pondicherry, set an example where a local community follows this water code and is flourishing over a long term. And then it is for the people to see that it is not that economy thrives when the world is suffering with all that. These communities are healthy. So we can take these two steps: catching hold of local heroes and then setting up example.
You're muted, Shelley.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Preeti. Yes, absolutely. The water heroes and finding those people who will be the ambassadors for this is so important. And the idea about, waiting for governments, I think what I didn't put out here, and which is a very important piece of what we're hoping to do, is to call, to declare World Water Year 2021. So to declare 2021 a World Water Year. So it actually gives us time to create momentum and to bring people on board and to create the infrastructures, the applications, the technology, the inspiration, the films, the education, bringing the educators around water together to give, to give freely to the public the water solutions. So it's about creating a movement really that builds on itself over a year, and even to create to get hold of a technology that can show the state of the water at the beginning of the year and what different countries or different local areas are doing for water, and somehow mapping it out. That's one of the pictures that we have, and we're just waiting for the right technology to come on board. So there's lots of ways that we can actually encourage and support this global citizen movement with the power of life calling. And just getting behind it in something which really goes very differently from where we are now, which is against. We don't want any more of that. We don't want more of that. We're fighting. We're saying no. And this kind of takes our energy into something collectively, which is positive, which is, it holds that inspiration. And yeah, Preeti, your ideas are very, you're really working with a lot of strategy there that I appreciate it a lot. I'd love to. Do you have any connections with any of these people?
Yeah, so I don't have a direct connection, but I once used to volunteer for Environmental Foundation of India. They are a local group of volunteers who clean up lakes in India, and they are very passionate about urban lakes especially. So they restore the lake to its original habitat just with the help of volunteers on their own. So I can write to them, but I don't know them directly. But I think if we write emails, these are groups which do read and but I have to have a powerful format in which I show the links to information which prove that. Easily, and it's easily readable, which prove that yes, animal agriculture is one of the leading causes. So we can definitely, that is not a problem. Reaching local heroes is never a problem. So we can do that. Yeah. Quite.
Yeah, we've got some interesting partners already in India with the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance. I don't know if you know Parmat Nikatan. And friends from the Sugad Institute in Ahmedabad, connected to the Sabarmati Ashram. There's a coalition for the Coalition for Water Security, which is a coalition of water organizations in the area of Bangalore. So it feels like, and because India is such a at the forefront of the water crises in many ways with that double kind of impact of increasing water scarcity and rapid population growth and urbanization. So it feels like for the 26th, and this is what we're hoping with the open spaces, that even countries can start to host an open space session in terms of in terms of local and national networking, where we can start to come together at a country level and start to identify who are the water heroes, what are the leading water organizations, what are the best water solutions, and really start to make that visible on a map as we start to come together.
Just to follow up on Preeti, and then I will ask you, BJ, because you have your hands up. Thank you for your patience. Just to follow up on what Preeti said, you are absolutely right. The way government works is they prioritize economic growth over anything else. So they sign other things, but then when it comes to if that impacts economic growth, they choose economic growth over what they signed. Okay, they're stuck in that mode because that's the current game that we are playing, right? This is why if you look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 goals, and you can see all these things are there. Clean water is there. There is zero hunger. There is zero poverty. All these great goals are there in the UN SDGs. But then there is goal number 8, which is economic growth. Okay, economic growth and decent work. And you ask yourself, if you had zero hunger, if you had no poverty, if you had clean water, you have good food, do you really care that the economy is growing? Some idiot somewhere is measuring some number and it's going to grow. No, we don't, right? So that goal number 8 is the Trojan horse of all SDGs. So if you really want to make progress in governments, campaign for SDG number 8 to be ditched. Because it's unnecessary. If you meet all the other goals, you don't care about that. But that's the Trojan horse that's been put in place to make sure that we don't change the system. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Thank you. PJ, go for it.
Thank you. I have a friend in Ethiopia, an online friend I don't know very well, but I'm aware of the water shortages there, and there are many around the world. And I think he knows that he may not know the connection of meat and water. I don't know, but he doesn't eat meat. But what I'm thinking is, when I was thinking about that and what you're doing and how I could connect with him and what he knows, and then hearing from Preeti, what about, if I just shared your document, what about a white paper on how there's a connection between water and eating animals? I mean, I know there's hundreds of papers on water. I've seen them, and there's books on it. But a simple white paper that shows the rain cycle, this, and why you're being a desert now, and why you don't have water, refer to this, refer to that. I don't know, it just seems like your document, then you could say, oh, well, refer to that, and you will see the connection. Because everybody loves the water idea, but so what about the animals? I mean, not really so what, but for the connection. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Salish, are you ready to write another white paper?
I've been told to start calling them position papers and not white paper.
Okay.
Because, is white paper good and black paper bad? Right. So it becomes one of those things. Or brown paper, right? So
blue paper.
Blue paper.
I like it. Position paper.
Position paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be incredibly useful. It would be,
I mean, it's worthwhile to write something like that to show why the water footprint of animal foods are higher. And because they are higher, the toxic burden is also higher. In fact, it's not only is it, it's more than proportional to the water footprint, the toxic burden of the animal foods. Because the animals have a way to concentrate the toxins in their bodies, whereas plants have a way to filter the toxins. So,
and of course, there's all the hidden things like the antibiotics that go into the animals, the hormones that then go back into the water system. And I'm sure that, when you see all the line, the whole sequence of toxins that are impacted on the water from that is really important. Thank you for the idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Benjamin and Suzanne.
Thank you. I have a question in it. I'm not sure if it is related, but it's also kind of an idea. So, is there I'm not quite sure, I'm not familiar with this field. What is the current status of the testing of water? Are we able, as activists, to order a kit and go and start testing certain areas or places ourselves
for mapping,
for creating
our database,
for creating some kind of database where we can point and say, here's what's going on. We can literally go outside, take a sample, and prove to you that there is a contamination here, or and then I guess my follow-up to that would be, what exactly are we measuring, and are there specific levels of certain contaminants that are being outlined in this framework that are acceptable versus what is clean water? I guess maybe that's my question.
What does that even mean?
Yeah,
now?
what does that mean now? And is it something that we can take into our own hands in terms of educating others as activists?
So yeah, that's such a great question. You know, we're not scientists, but we're sure that there are so many different tests for water that already exist. And one of the ideas is also how to activate people during World Water Year, the education system, to go to their local water sources and actually, you know, in their science classes, do the tests. So to the measurement piece is super important. And what we would like to also encourage and see happen and give voice to, even though we're not the experts in it, we were talking to Salish about it the other day, is to look at the hidden aspects on like electromagnetic radiation on water. And also, water is such a sensitive element and it holds so much information. And when we just limit the tests to things that identify evident toxins, rather than all sorts of processes that actually and again, I'm not the scientist, it just speaks to me logically. What we understand is that there's structured water which holds the original blueprint, the original intelligence. Nature's water is structured, it has a coherence in it. And so there's someone who speaks about the fourth phase of water, which has a gel-like structure. So what we're really looking to do, you know, is put the idea into the system that when we can actually test water for everything. And instead of having animal testing, for instance, or human testing, if you just test the impact of any technology on water or any ingredient on water, we'll be able to get so much information that actually will put a lot of tests out of work. So, you know, there's so many ideas that come when you start to explore the power of water for all of this. There's so many ideas that come, and while we're not the experts in this, we are hoping that this initiative will gather those that have been actually doing that kind of work on the ground and coming together and say, oh, here we've got a platform to bring this and put everything into the mix, and they're already coming in such beautiful ways.
And there are already, you know, quite a surprising amount of different, you know, universities and other platforms of water stewards who allow you to map your own watershed and monitor, you know, where you can actually put the data in yourself. And another interesting aspect that Shelley was speaking about at some point was, you know, in terms of, it's almost like if we can start to really map and monitor the evolution of our planetary water system, then looking at the water body as a whole is synonymous to a planetary health scan, because water is really the reflection of our health. When our waters are healthy and vibrant and nourishing ecosystems in an efficient and effective and a natural way, that, and then, you know, that can be translated to how natural water can be distributed to urban areas, to populated areas that don't require any fluoridation or chlorine or any other contaminants. You know, to what extent are we moving towards really kind of, you know, that natural water relationship that we can have? That is a reflection of how healthy we are as a planet, which is quite an interesting thing. So working with what is already there and what is already happening is school kids go to their local river and do their water tests, let that happen, you know, globally, internationally, and have a shared common database for that, where we can really start to, see how we can purify our planetary waters, and what an inspiration that would be, along with where we start to see a map of those areas in crisis where people don't have access to water, starting to appear on the map as these are the areas. And this is what the codes talk about. They talk about the, not only the rehabilitation of the trauma, but also the rehabilitation of, ecosystems and communities in crisis. And that is where we need to start, because a system is only as healthy as its weakest part. And so by mapping and making visible those areas that are most vulnerable and prioritizing the healing and restoration of those areas, and that includes factory farms, among many, many other things, those are the areas we need to heal first. And mapping is such a beautiful way to visualize that and to visualize the evolution of that.
Yeah, I can see for me with the animal rights movement, the fact that we have cell phone video recording on demand, battery powered, wherever we go, has been incredibly helpful in terms of spreading this message and education, and being able to go do the work yourself and show up, and some people go into the farm itself and take footage and share that footage. Hey, Kamaya. I can see and I'll have to do some more research into this, if there is widespread accessibility to water testing that we can do ourselves. I see this as just as powerful as that in terms of exposing the problem. I think that we have a hard time making the connection between there being an issue with the water and the health of the animals, the people, and the environment, because we aren't quite sure how to measure it or how to improve it ourselves. I'll speak for myself. I don't have that knowledge. However, if I did have the ability to go and start testing, I would feel empowered to start sharing that information and asking other people to test in other places. So I think that and I forget whose quote I'm trying to remember, but that which is measured can be improved.
I think it's Pearson's law.
Is it Pearson's law?
Basically, yeah, measuring something helps you, and measuring and reporting helps you even more. So.
And I think that this is just another opportunity for us to use that to our advantage.
Looking forward to going deeper into that discussion. Yes, Julie, hi.
Here I am. Hi. This has been wonderful. I'm very sorry I came a little bit late. So I have a question, but I also have a comment. And if the question has already been addressed, I'm sorry, you might have to say again. So I will just start with the question maybe. And the question is, how about the privatization of water? That's my big thing. It has been for like ever with bottled water. And it started even before really the phenomenon of people paying more money for a bottle of water than they do for petrol, for gasoline. And we all know the amount of water that goes into the production of a plastic water bottle, as well as the amount of other resources, notably petrol, but also just the idea of water being a public good and it being privatized. So that is something that just is one of my pet peeves among many pet peeves, but has been gnawing at me for, forever. So that's the question, but I want to just go back. And so I don't know, well, I'll go before that. Have we addressed that? Have you addressed the issue of privatization?
Not in this conversation, but it's implicit in the law. I'll say more about that.
Okay. So let me just get, and the comment I wanted to make was a bit about what we were talking about, the environmental aspects of animal agriculture and water. And I've been doing some research, and I work in India. So I've been doing research about just the environmental damage of animal agriculture, of course. And one of the things you were talking, Shelley, about was, you know, the hormones, for example, in animal agriculture, the hormones the animals produce that eventually make their way into the water systems, either via us because we're eating these animals, or just because, you know, it's the spillover from it, and as well as the fertilizers and everything else that we're going to be using. But one of the things that and I've only found one article about it, and it's a phenomenon in India, it's about stunting. It's about malnourishment, and particularly stunting. And it's something that for many, many years, people were, it's the rate of stunting is much, much higher in India than in most other countries per capita. I mean, you know, and for a long time, people were really sort of focusing on the open defecation, which is definitely a huge problem in India. And it is, I mean, you know, you are contaminating the water supply when you are defecating out in the opening, and that, you know, the excreta goes into the soils and everything, and it goes back into the waterways. But I have found one article that is kind of, for me, you know, very, very important, because the research are starting to hypothesize that it's the animal waste that is actually contaminating, that it is probably more the animal waste that is contaminating the water systems. The level of diarrhea, for example, the rate of diarrhea that is clearly related to E. coli, salmonella, all of these things that are very, very much related to animal waste. And that they really are starting to now, well, a few people, because it's of course very unpopular to actually say that it's the waste from animal agriculture that is getting into the water supply. And when you know that India has the largest population of cattle in the world and the highest density of cattle as well, things start becoming a little bit more clear. You don't have to really go very far. So yeah, that's what I wanted to bring into this conversation. But the privatization for me is something that I really would love to gnaw at.
So thank you so much for both of those aspects. And for me, you know, the privatization is absurd. It's I mean, I don't even have a word for it. But it's, you know, what we've done in the law is to put it in a different way. We basically say to ensure to ensure the free access of all humans and animals to clean, uncontaminated, natural uncontaminated water, which basically it leaves, you know, it also says restore the planetary water cycle. So it leaves the how-to up to the process that will unfold. And it's this kind of information that will show, you know, how, you know, can we really guarantee free access of everyone to pure uncontaminated water if it's being privatized? No, of course not. You know, can we actually continue animal agriculture or nuclear waste or anything like that when we make everybody accountable for their impact on water? So when you put accountability into the system, and accountability is a very, very key aspect of it. When, you know, it says holding everybody accountable for their impact on water. You actually, there's an address to go to, and people say, well, are you impacting water in a way that is, you know, what is your impact on water? So it's all in there, but it's done in a very kind of condensed, essential way that when you actually unpack it, you realize that everything that we're doing today will probably have to transform. Everything. You know, it's a whole, it's a whole new, you know, when you put the emphasis on water, make it a water-centered economy, water-centered law, water-centered education, you're actually taking care of everything, every aspect of life. So that's the reason why we're doing it this way. The unpacking is the important piece, but that's up to people like yourself and everybody else to do the measurements, to do this. It's bringing our resources to the table, but it just gives those uncompromising foundational guidelines that we then need to figure out how to actually get there.
There's an article as well that we wrote on the website. If you click the Learn More button on the water law, that goes into the last part of that article. The last parts are suggestions on the strategic implementation. So what is the strategy for how do we implement? I can just see here. So yeah, it would be great to get your feedback on this. It talks about the holistic impacts of water. It talks about how, each of the SDGs, just out of curiosity, where is the
economy?
The economic growth one. Yeah, here.
It's number 8.
Yes, local water will support healthy local jobs that stimulate local resilience and vibrant local economies. Yeah, we can talk about that because indeed the number 8 is it is the Trojan horse. That is such an interesting way that you shared that.
What we tried to do there was reframe change it from growth to health.
Yeah.
Without taking it on directly at this point. So
there's the strategies for implementation, and then there's also a whole part on a global reset that is guided by water that looks at, how would the economy transform, because we're basically talking about illegalizing any contamination of water, which means that, probably 90%, if not more, of all corporations would, according to the codes, either need to transform or dissolve. And, there is a transformation process that we can support. But ultimately, the whole economy needs to change with the water law. And it talks about introducing an unconditional basic income to ensure that all of the employees of these companies that are contaminating the waterways are taken care of. And, accompanied with educational programs and water and food security education, because ultimately, as we said before, water security is the essential foundation of food security. So yeah, there's lots to unpack, and even in that article, it really just touches on some of the key notes that we need to look at and address, but there's so much, it goes so much deeper.
Yeah.
Priti, you raised your hand.
Just to follow up on Julie, and then I'll ask Priti to talk. Julie's point about privatization cuts to the core of it. Basically, that's the Trojan horse of number 8, SDG number 8. Because if you're talking about growing the economy and growing the economy as it's being measured today, then the economy only values things that are scarce. It doesn't value things that are abundant. If it's abundant, it's priced as 0, right? So there's no value to it. So you have to make water, clean water, scarce. Then you can put it in bottles and you can sell it. Then people will buy it. Okay. So fundamentally, it's driving the pollution of the water, is driving all of these things, because otherwise there's no money to be made in water. And so the privatization and the economic growth, Trojan horse, are the 2 things we need to address as the base of it. Okay. Thanks, Priti, for your patience. Go for it.
No, thank you. So my question is, I really didn't understand what is the first difference between some commodity being privatized and not privatized. Because when for example, in India, I go to a local restaurant, they'll always keep a glass of water, even if I don't ask for it. And if I don't consume the glass of water, it will be thrown it'll be thrown because they'll not give it to the next customer. But when I go outside India, I have to order. I mean, I have to pay for the water. So I felt, wow, now I'll think before I'll think before, you know, asking for water, because I'm paying. Sort of when I pay for something, I feel it is precious, and when it is free, in my mind, it's like it's free. It's like when the electricity bill is high enough, I'll make sure that I switch off the lights and fans when I leave the room. But when the water is relatively free, it is hard to put the notion of preciousness on that resource. So so how will we stop people from wasting something that is free? Or in the other alternate model, I think people may pay for water depending on the income levels. Like, for example, people who earn very high pay a lot of income tax, then people who are people below poverty line don't pay income tax. So because if it is free, then it is the upper and the rich people will use water excessively to wash their cars and you know, every day maybe. So somehow I feel that it is better if it is paid. Sometimes it should be even more costly than the electricity.
So my answer to that for now, I mean, I think it's such a great point. You know, it's really that this water law doesn't come, it comes with a whole re-education program which honors water. So, you know, as we begin to really put water at the center of our consciousness and understand it, what we're also hoping will happen is that we will start to learn to honor water and to understand it as an intelligence that is so sacred. So that will obviously need to come. It's not just a matter of making it expensive or free. That's only a part of it. It's really about restoring right relationship with water and learning about water from, you know, in the educational realm, just bringing that consciousness in a whole new way.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the gift economy, if people have a history of using water resources carefully, they might be given a free access to water. And if they have a history of using it carelessly, then we can restrict access to water or ask them to pay for it until they make up for a good history again, maybe.
I think, you know, when you also make everybody accountable for their impact on water, you also can make them accountable for the amount that they use, whether it's too much, whether it's beyond what their needs or whether it's according to their needs. So when we look at it in a holistic way, that's also there because we are making people accountable for their impact on water. So that the amount of usage, I think, needs to be very much in there as well.
I just want to interject, if I may. I'm very sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Sailesh. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, Julie.
No, so I just wanted to say, actually, the idea of privatization, Preeti, is just that there's nobody getting rich off of our use of something, a private, you know, a company or a private individual. There's some extraordinary quotations that you can find from the CEOs of Nestle and these big groups that have basically gotten rich more off of their water, Coca-Cola, you know. And the way they talk about it is they do talk about it exactly what, as Sailesh was saying, it's just, you know, it's a precious good, so it has to be worth this, you know. So the idea of privatization, we can talk about it with our energy. I happen to be an ambassador for a renewable energy cooperative. And the idea is it's a cooperative. So nobody is getting rich off of, nobody's getting rich off of our consumption of energy. And because of that, because it is a cooperative, we are a lot more aware of how we are using it, because we know the real price of it. We know the real cost of these things. And it's the same thing with water. Water is a public good. I mean, if we think of water as being a public good, of course, there has to be some sort of payment for it, because just for the infrastructure, you know, of pipes and of filtration or whatever, desalinization or whatever it happens to be. So there will have to be a cost, but it is a cost that society or a community will take upon themselves. And that will, the priorities of each community, depending on where they happen to live, their access to water, that will be established, I think, from community. It's not going to be the same thing for people living in Kerala with 2 monsoons a year, and someone who, in Rajasthan, for example, where, you know, the monsoon is barely even. So these types of things, I think that's really, when we think of what privatization and public good is, I think we can talk about it in that level. Sorry, Sailesh, I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah, also I was going to tell Preeti that, you know, in our Chrysalis incubator, I mean, Vegan World 2026, we have a study group called Aquarius. And the Aquarius study group is looking at a new currency system, a new money system that actually uses water footprint as one of its objectives for measuring the impact of our consumption and so on. So it will be built into the system as we see it evolve. Okay, so you're welcome to join that group. There's a lot of discussion going on about that. Annette, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rao. I included in the chat our communication with nature on the SDGs over the last 3 years under the direction of my animal and nature communication teacher, Dr. Maya Kincaid. We've been communicating with nature on the goals, and we've created these 3 volumes. We're working best on how to get this information to the ambassadors and to get them to read the information. So I put the PDFs in the chat if anybody's interested in reading these pieces of information, which includes number 8. And we can always go deeper with nature on any of these topics.
Thank you. We'll definitely take a look at those. So I think for me, the question comes up around follow-up. You know, I just want to say that this is the beginning of a conversation. I'm so grateful to all of you for showing interest, for showing up, and looking forward to deepening the conversation. And, you know, we don't have a strategic plan. We're really working with resonance. We're working with, as we offer something to the field, what comes back, where the energy is. It's not about convincing anyone. It's about working with those who really get it and who know, you know, how to support making it happen. And just inviting any of you to be in contact with us around ideas, and also to come to the on the 26th, on the Sunday, to the open space session. You know, I think each of the points that all of you have brought up is worthy of a session in itself. You know, it's with regard to the measuring, with regard to the water-based diet, with regard to all of this. I mean, each of these can invite a session. So also, if you have a group of people that would be interested, please bring them along to that session, so that it's a space where those conversations will happen. It's totally self-organizing, so there isn't anyone organizing or telling anyone where to be, but it's people who want to host a session or invite a conversation, one can say, who wants to join me to discuss the issue of measurement, who wants to discuss the issue of hormones in the, you know, in the soil, whatever it is. And whoever shows up, shows up. If nobody shows up for your conversation, you join another conversation at that point. The sessions are documented and then collated at the end, so we can get a picture of what happens in the diverse sessions. And I think this will be one of the primary ways that we will be inviting the global conversation to happen. And then we need to work also very hard with Sailesh to create the right virtual infrastructure of the community that can begin to bring it all together. So if Annette, did you put your hand up again?
No, I made an error. I was.
So if they maybe just, I know it's getting, you know.
Just put the link in the chat, just so that you can see as well. There's a web page here that gives more information where you can also, you can just apply to host or register for either of the sessions or both of the sessions. You see the times there. I'll just put that link in the chat for now.
So just I think it would be great if there's just a space for anyone that wants to just say a closing remark, or just where you are now, and then we can begin to close for now. I'm really looking forward to continuing.
Start. I'm very grateful for all of the work you've put into this, and I feel inspired, and I have a good feeling about, is it called World Water Year? Is that, yeah, I have a good feeling about World Water Year.
World Water Year 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Good to get that resonance.
That's been great conversation. Thank you for organizing it. And I'm looking forward to further discussions about everything everyone brought up today. Was on point and fascinating. So I'm curious to see where this goes, and I'm looking forward to helping in whatever way I can.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting, and hopefully you will be in with our collective intelligence group and our other group, Solutions Club, and Dr. Rao can give you all the links to that. But we definitely have to have a collective effort and not start something new where we already have groups. We should just collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley and Jan. So if I connect to any local water hero, and if I had to communicate something with you, how do I do that? Like, is there an email on your webpage?
Jan has just put his email into the chat, jan@togetherincreation.org or Shelley@togetherincreation.org. You can put mine as well.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And absolutely, Preeti, if you want to have a, create a Zoom call to talk about it in depth, anyone who wants to continue a conversation in depth, please feel free to contact us, and we can we'd be delighted to make the time. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you, Shelley and Jan, for your time and for your wisdom. And as always, we look forward to work with you continuously.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Just knowing that Salish is in the world makes me much more hopeful. Thank you so much, Salish, just for everything that you're doing, for all the group, for all you're doing. We are.
Shelley, how do we get your contact information? I'm doing a speech at Vegan Toastmasters on Sunday, actually about water. So this just couldn't have come at a better time.
It's in the chat.
I'll put Shelley's as well.
Right. So yeah, just I can't express fully the depth of my gratitude to what you're all doing around Vegan World. It's knowing that you're doing it allows us to take on a slightly different frame, slightly different perspective that supports it without actually working with the same language, and that's really important as well. So that there are these different ways of communicating that support each other and that complement each other, because not everyone goes through the same portal to Vegan World 2026, but hopefully The intention is that the World Water Law and World Water Year 2021 is going to be a very, very important gateway to Vegan World 2026. Without stating it.
The Trojan horse.
A different kind of Trojan horse, yes.
I see. So you are SDG number 8 for us.
Hopefully, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
And looking forward to much more.
Blessings.
Bye.
Same
Thank
here.
you.
See you on the 26th for sure.
Great.
Wonderful.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.